Indonesia, a place centered in Southeast Asia, homes of hundreds of different ethnicities and languages. With such diversity, what would happen if there were ghosts, cultural demons, local apparitions? The spirits in Indonesia are like its people, diverse with every color. Let's go take a look and experience one of Asia's hottest places with the most chilliest stories out there. There's 12 of them. Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, because here's the return of my most popular series, 12 real Asian ghost stories. And this time, we're flying to Indonesia. Orang Banyan. Hey guys, have you ever heard of the Banyans? Okay, here goes. A story my late grandfather had told me before when I was a kid. In the early 1970s, my grandfather, he worked in a large plantation in the island of Sumatra in Indonesia. The plantation was situated south of Lake Toba, and it was in hilly terrain. All the executives' houses were constructed in a straight line on top of a low hill. His house was the second one in the row. In the front of their houses were a few rows of oil palm trees. After this, the hill sloped off into a valley. As it was too steep to plant on this slope, it became covered over with undergrowth and small jungle trees. The valley itself was a riot of all sorts of tropical creepers, weeds, and larger trees. On the other side of the valley, the slope was terraced and planted with rubber trees. As he was new to the country then, and just learning the language, he kept mostly to himself after work and pored over an Indonesian dictionary every night. Other than satellite TV, they had no other entertainment. On weekends, he hit the sack early as he had to get up at 5 the next day for work. Even from his first week there, he noted that there was some sort of celebration or prayer meeting every Wednesday evening, straight the opposite of his home. Although he saw no one, he concluded that this must be the case, as precisely at 6:30, he heard the sounds of metal drums. This sound went on for about half an hour or about 1 hour and then stopped as suddenly as it began. When he asked his house help as to what was going on there, she just shrugged her shoulders and did not reply. He thought it was impolite or improper to ask about such matters and did not bother to question her about it anymore. As he got to know the plantation better, his curiosity about this drumming became deeper. He knew there were no houses or buildings in the valley in front of his home. On the hill beyond the valley, too, there were no homes or other buildings. Yet every Wednesday, the drumming appeared to be coming from somewhere very close, almost as if from the valley. Finally, as tactfully as possible, he asked some of his assistants as to what the sound was and from where it was coming from. They smiled at him and said, "It's the Banyan people." He did not wish to look silly by asking them what the Banyan people were, so he just said, "Huh," and nodded in agreement. There was an assistant who was particularly close to him. My grandfather asked him in confidence as to what these Banyan people were. The assistant replied that they were invisible people, somewhat similar to the gnomes and fairies of Western folklore. They liked living near humans and sometimes got friendly with them. There were stories of how some human males married Banyan females and went on to be accepted in the Banyan community. They, however, became invisible to other humans as soon as they entered the Banyan community. Humans could ask for help from the Banyans if a person was having a feast and did not have enough cultures for the occasion. Plates could be borrowed from the Banyan people. Great care, however, must be taken that not a single plate is broken. He asked his assistant as to how he could prove that the drumming was made by the Oran Bunyan. He replied that on one Wednesday, two other assistants determined to find out once and for all where the sound issued. Armed with torchlights and long knives, they proceeded to look for the source of the sound as soon as it started. They descended all the way into the valley and traveled up quite a distance on the hill on the other side, and still the sound appeared to be coming from just a short distance in front of them. As it had already gone dark by then, they abandoned their quest and hurried back home. We can find out more about Oran Bunyan and read some more of these folk tales. I'm convinced that they do exist, as I've heard their stories everywhere, and how my late grandfather told me the story of his. The apartment. I don't believe in ghosts, but that was 5 years ago. Now I do. It was in 1996. I was stationed in Jakarta, Indonesia for 2 years. I loved the place. The rich cultures and the people. Being young and independent drove me to venture on my own. I had a well-paid job, my own personal driver, a maid, and a beautiful apartment complete with a swimming pool. What more can a person ask for? But that was about to change. After 2 months of living in the apartment, I had a personal visit from the previous owner of the apartment. It came and stayed in my room. At first, I tried not to jump into conclusions that I was faced with a ghost. I was in denial. The so-called spirit would disturb and shake my bed when I was sound asleep. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt a presence that was so strong and eerie. You have to really be there to experience it yourself. I have never been so scared in my life before. At that very moment, I just wanted to head straight back home to Singapore. That was not all. The haunting continued. I found my maid trembling and pale after work the next day. She was so shaken up that she begged me to let her go. She told me that she was slapped while she was cleaning my room and that the door was shut behind her, and as if refusing for her to come out of it. And then she heard a woman's laughter. My maid did not come back after that incident. I was on my own. That was not the end of the story. When I'm watching TV in the living room, I can hear laughter and voices along the corridor where my room was. Sometimes when I'm praying, I can even feel that someone was watching me, and suddenly the room would become cold. It's not the air conditioning, mind you. The air conditioning is in my room and not even switched on. Weeks passed. It kept disturbing me. I could not even concentrate in my work. It would slam the door, flush the toilet, and even had the guts to frighten my friends away. I've never felt so lonely in my entire life. I called my mom and she suggested that I prayed more. I did. It did not seem to work. I was angry and scared at the same time. The spirit was indeed controlling my life. I was determined to stay in the country and in the apartment. So I visited a Taoist priest to move the spirit away to somewhere else. He came and said prayers around the apartment. As he did that, he stopped and stood at the entrance of my room. He said, "It's here. Most of the time. Not one of them, but two." I was shocked. "To what?" I asked. "To Pontiacs, and they didn't want to go. 2 demons. It's their home," he replied. "I don't think it's a good idea living with them. Would you?" That was the last straw. I was not going to give up that easily. They would just have to find a new place to live at. Which indeed they did, of course, with the help of the priest. Ever since then, the haunting stopped. I was glad it was over. I went to see the management of the apartment, and he told me that the apartment was built upon an old village cemetery. And a tenant who was back from his business trip who had wanted to change to another unit. He told him that he felt uneasy in his apartment. I was pretty sure it was the Pontiac demons who had caused that guy to shift his units. What do you think? Hotel Playful Spirits. My father is a businessman, so he often has to work overseas for his meetings. On one unforgettable trip to Indonesia, my father was soundly sleeping in this hotel after a busy day at work. It was about 4 a.m. in the morning. My dad felt someone tugging at his blanket. It was pulling the blanket away from him. As my dad was still half asleep, he didn't think that much, so he just casually pulled the blanket back up. But this time the person kept pulling the blanket, trying to get attention from him. At last, my dad lost his temper and sat up. He saw a shadow running into the toilet. He got up and followed it. When he went into the toilet, the lights had already been on, but there was nothing there. My dad told us that the toilet seemed hot in the side, like as if someone had just taken a hot bath. Feeling a little scared, he went out to his room and over to his friend's room. The next morning, while they were checking out, my dad casually told the whole story to a security guard, and the security guard told him that many years ago, someone had committed suicide in that same room. A chill ran down my dad's spine as he told us this story. Makassar Night. This was actually what happened when I was posted in Makassar. Being a Singaporean, I was allocated to live alone in a 3-story building. It was considered a high-end residential area in Makassar, with all these houses spread apart some distances away. Thick vegetations covered the area and roads had no lighting at night, with the exception of lights from the houses of people not yet asleep. Apart from the house, there was also a car allocated to me without a driver, which I could drive myself around as I'm quite familiar with the roads there. One night, I had a dinner appointment with my Indonesian counterpart that lasted till 2 a.m. the next day. All was fine as I was driving home on a journey that took about 30 minutes from the hotel restaurant. When I reached the estate, it was total darkness, with the only illumination coming from my car headlights. The situation made me feel uncomfortable, and the temperature also seemed to be different from the other nights. It was 3 a.m. when I reached home, and I went up to the second floor where my bedroom was, with the bathroom next to my room. As I was inside the bathroom and about to take my shower, I heard a lady crying in the attic nearby from an open window. The lights in the bathroom began to flicker, and then the lights went off. I didn't really bother as my body and face was covered in soap, and I just continued with my shower. As I was about to leave the bathroom and head up to my bedroom next door, the light came back on again. After dressing up, I went downstairs to make a cup of coffee in the kitchen before resting on the sofa in front of a TV with an Indonesian program showing. Then I started to smell a strong stench. A stench that smelled like dead animal in the house, causing me to almost vomit out what I had eaten earlier. I was also not even able to get up from the sofa to move away or to open the door to run away. Suddenly, I saw a lady in a white long dress with long hair drifting slowly down the staircase from the second floor where my bedroom and bathroom was. She came in front of me where I was sitting, and the TV started to receive distortions that caused the screen to go blank. By now, I could see that her hair was dirty with grass, twigs, and mud, her face rotten with maggots and eyeless. I could not see her hands, and her dress stained with mud and blood. But then slowly moved into the kitchen, and I quickly got up from the sofa, before running back into my room and locking myself inside as I did my prayers. As I was praying, I unknowingly fell asleep and was only awakened by my local Indonesian colleague knocking on my door and the continuous calling of my cell phone. They were extremely worried and thought that something might have happened to me. They were relieved when they saw me in good shape. I did not tell them anything that happened that day regarding the incident the previous night, but I started to get worried when it was time to go back home after work. I tended to book into a hotel, but had not enough money to pay the hotel bill. Thus, I had no other alternative but to take the courage up to drive straight home after work. I did not dare to keep late night appointments and activity, hence, all the appointments and activities were to be scheduled in the daytime instead. I was there for about a year and nothing happened after that. Ghost from Indonesia. My family had just returned from Indonesia a week ago, and as Muslims, we have a few prayers before entering our house. However, on the day of our arrival to our house, we forgot, and it was dawn at the time. As we were very tired, we went to bed early. I dreamt that my sister was being disturbed by a spirit. I woke up sweating. Suddenly, I heard my sister crying. I rushed to her room and saw a figure sitting next to her bed. She ran to me, and we both went to our parents' room. When my parents came back to look into the room, the figure was not there, but the temperature of the room was cold. Then, we heard laughter. We could only pray. So this is a reminder, say your prayers before entering your house because you never know whether there is something following you. I suspect that the ghost must have followed us from Indonesia because we went to a ghost house. Haunted classroom in Indonesia. This is my first story ever published here. My name is Rio and I'm from Indonesia and I'm 20 years old. I've experienced a lot of paranormal things since my early childhood. My family, mainly from my father's side, are naturally born with some special things, and I possess those special things as well. Some of them hold kinds of amulets that have some kinds of spirits in them. We call it kadom inside. As for me, I do have some amulets, and besides that, I'm quite sensitive to those paranormal activities. I've just found this website earlier this morning, and I decided that this would be a good place to write my experience and share them with anyone interested. So this is not my first experience, but it's one of the earliest and involved quite a lot of people. During my junior high school years, about 6 to 7 years ago, I had this friend, we'll call her Jay, who was a really close friend of mine. We hanged out frequently, talked about many things, and shared anything with each other when we had problems. One time, she had some problems with her boyfriend, and she asked for my advice after school. Our school was built in the 1900s when Indonesia was still in Dutch possession, so it's old and still comprised a lot of wooden structures. My classroom is almost near the front yard, but you would have to enter through steel gates to get in the alley that led into my classroom. The class itself had a lot of windows, but also had wooden shutters, so if you closed the shutter, then no lights could enter or anyone else outside could see you inside. So basically, it's a perfect place to talk without any bothers. It was around 3 p.m. Most of our friends already went home. We finished the class at 2 p.m. There was only the two of us alone inside the classroom talking. Suddenly the door opened and one of my teachers get in. We freaked out because it's unusual in our culture that a boy and a girl alone in one place. So we're afraid that she would bring this matter and get the two of us into trouble. But then, to our astonishment, she just smiled and left. We didn't think much of it and continued our conversation. The next day, the teacher called one of my friends, her name is P, to the staff room 10 minutes later, she came back and called the two of us to join her there. Then everything became clear why the teacher wasn't angry yesterday. According to my teacher, she saw us yesterday and there were 3 of us inside the classroom. Me and Jay in the middle sitting, and she saw another person as well. She thought that person was P, sitting in front of the teacher's desk, but I swear that yesterday it was only me and Jay in there. But my teacher really was sure that she saw the third figure with long hair and the same junior high school uniform. Although she didn't see the face of this person because this person was looking away. 2 days later, one of my other teachers just finished up correcting exam papers in that same classroom at 5 p.m. when she heard sounds from the roof. It was almost like someone was jumping. So she went out and looked upwards and she saw a figure in a bloody white kafan clothing, the ones where they use to bury someone when they're dead in Indonesia. We call the entity as a pocong. Once again, if you Google it, you can find it. The entity's face was beyond recognition. It's bloody and raw, and she thought that she saw a white caterpillar-like thing or larva falling from one of its empty eye sockets and mouth. Freaked out, my teacher ran hastily to the exit door and she retrieved the exam papers tomorrow morning. Also, in that exact classroom, there's a mirror in the left side of the teacher's desk. One of the teachers one day went to check her appearance after she took lunch, but what she saw was not her face. Rather, a Dutch lady with a pale face and blood coming out of her eyes, nose, and lips. She fainted, unfortunately. No students were there, and it was already some time before someone found her. She was in a state of shock, and it took her almost 2 weeks before she was ready to teach again. There are tons of stories from my junior high school and from that room. I also have a lot from my part of life as well. I'll write them up next time, and sorry for my bad English. Any comments are welcome, even for those who want to go ghost hunting in my country. Followed by Unseen. I was visiting Medan in 1975 and had been out with my cousin on his scooter one night. And while returning home to his place in the wee hours of the morning, we passed by this pitch-black area. When I asked him where we were, he told me that this was an old cemetery, dating back to the 17th century. I didn't think much about it. But when we got back, I headed for the bed really tired. While I was sleeping, I felt something choking me and found myself trying to break free and breathe, but I couldn't. Suddenly, I shouted, "Allah!" And then I let go. My uncle, who was just next door, heard my yell and got up, but I said nothing and went to the bathroom and did my prayers, after which I slept like a log. It's important to cleanse oneself after returning home from anywhere, as you never know the dangers that lurk behind you. Batam is haunted. This happened to me when I was on a trip to Batam with my family in the year of 1994. As we were only staying for one night, all of us checked into the same room. Thank goodness the hotel room was comfy. It was even considered grand compared to what we saw at the immigration. Everything went smoothly during the day. It was only at night that something happened. My 2 sisters, my mom, and myself shared the bed while my father had to bunk on the sofa. Being the 2 eldest among the girls, my mom and me slept on the opposite sides at the edge of the bed. I was passed out by the time my head touched the pillow. I had this really funny dream that sent me into a fit of non-stop giggling. That woke up my mom. I dreamt my mom was cycling downhill, so that means she was going zigzag. She was wearing this ugly and fluorescent-colored blouse and a huge skirt. Her hair was tied into 2 pigtails at the side, and her makeup was horrible. She had these 2 bright red spots on her cheeks. I was enjoying my dream when I felt someone shaking me. I jumped up and saw my mom right beside me. She hurriedly asked me to wake up and change sides. I was quite blurred considering the great sleep I just had. It was around 4 in the morning when I checked my watch. Obeying her instructions, I slept through till about 8 a.m. It was only after everyone had woken up that my mom told me what was wrong. She explained that she heard my non-stop giggling and thought that I was talking to my sister, so she made nothing out of it. Only when she turned her head did she see something sitting on the side table and tickling me. From her explanation, this thing could well be a Pontiac. Only after saying some prayers and ordering her to go away did my mom brave herself to come over to my side. After hearing that, I was thankful that I can wake up from a dream like that. Never in my entire life had I come across or experienced anything with the supernatural. I'm sure I don't want to experience it again. Jakarta, hairy ghost. This story happens in Indonesia. As most people have heard, Jakarta in Indonesia has numerous places that are haunted, and there are also quite a diversity in the type of ghost. For example, there's the Pontiac, Tuyul, Pocong, etc. This time, I'm about to tell a story of yet another type of ghost called a hairy ghost. It was around 2 in the morning. As usual, I was still awake because of my bad habits. I was sitting in front of the computer, typing away just like that. I do it every single night. I was looking out the window of my balcony as I was thinking, what else should I write for this economics report? When all of a sudden I heard a clanking sound. It seemed like something had toppled over outside my balcony. It was rather windy that night, so I moved on. Around half an hour later, I heard there was someone kicking a can outside my balcony, and I could also smell this weird smell of this leaf called a kamiri when burnt. So I decided to investigate. I creep up to the entrance of my balcony gently. I can feel a slight tingly feeling in my stomach, just like when I get nervous. I slowly opened the door, pushing it a little by little. I could only see the darkness of the night filling in the shade of my balcony. I tiptoed onto the balcony floor and saw a can of paint on the side of the balcony. Suddenly, I felt something hovering me over my back. I gently turned back to my utter amazement of horror. I saw a huge creature. It was about 2 meters tall. It was very big. It was pure black. I couldn't see his face as it was covered by its own hair. I just froze there about 10 seconds. I was glaring at this creature. I was shivering in fear and went straight to the door of the balcony that leads to my room. As I ran, I turned back, but the creature had vanished from the balcony. I just ran back into my room, then turned on all the lights, then creeped inside my blanket, and I shut my eyes as hard as I could, fearing I might see that dreadful creature again. Until now, I've never seen that creature again, but once in a while, I can smell its scent. I mean, as long as it doesn't bother me, I guess it would be fine. A call from empty room. It's been 6 months since I started my job as a guest relations officer in a villa in Bali. This happened on May 2nd of this year. A day before, I welcomed a group of Chinese guests, 3 guys and 2 girls. They booked 2 villas, and they were the only group guests we had that week. On May 2nd, they were pretty much gone pretty early, picked up by the driving company at 7 a.m. I did my job for the day, and since it was low season, by noon I'd pretty much done everything. I retired to my office upstairs for lunch and for a break. At around 2:30 p.m., my head butler called my office, saying a guest wanted to speak to me. He didn't say the villa's name, so I had no clue about it. He asked about afternoon tea, and also I suggested he take a look at our menu, and when he had decided what he wanted, he could give us a call back. Then I asked his villa's name. We'll just call it Villa A for discretion's sake. The villa was located next to our restaurant. After making sure that he was the group guest that checked in the day before, I hung up. 15 minutes later, and still no callback, so I took the initiative to call his villa. No answer. 2 more calls in 10 minutes, still no answer. I called the other villa, no answer either. Then it struck me. The guests were supposed to be out. 7 a.m. driving company. I called the reception, asking them to check the keys. In our villa, the guests who go out must leave the key in the reception. The keys were all in the reception, meaning that they hadn't been back yet. The Chinese guest hasn't been back yet. Oh well, I thought maybe one of them was feeling unwell and left alone, but the head butler reacted with something akin to fear. So I went down and proceeded to check the villas. I knocked many times, but no one opened the door. Then 2 housekeeping staffs happened to pass, so I asked if they had cleaned the rooms. They confirmed that they had just did turn down service for those 2 villas, and they were completely empty. In the end, I took both keys and entered the villas to check myself. Empty. Not a soul. Now when guests call us in the reception, our phone will show the extension number, letting us know which guest is giving us a call. So this is important so that we can greet them by name and create a familiar feeling. Besides, we are small villas here. Our complex only consists of 19 villas altogether. My head butler confirmed that the call was coming from inside, from Villa A, not from outside or any other villas. Just to make sure, I called the other Chinese guests, but none of them made that call. I was sure of this because the voice who gave me that call was heavy and very masculine. One guest had a very light voice, the others were out doing a spa or doing massages, and some of them were in the restaurant. Now it couldn't be our guests because they were all out, all 5 of them. It couldn't be my friends playing some stupid prank on me because the person on the other line spoke Chinese. I'm the only one who speaks Chinese here. I was the only Chinese speaking staff. It couldn't be another guest entering the wrong room because the gate was locked and the key was kept in our reception. It couldn't be the telephone machine messed up because he was clearly saying where he was. My head butler was so afraid that day because just a few weeks ago, other guests have also experienced something very strange in that same room. Like the safety deposit box was unlocked by itself and a presence hovering over them nearby when they slept. Until now, I am still baffled by this. Who the hell gave me a call from that empty room? I'm right here, she wants to say. I recently moved to Jakarta and started working as an account executive in an advertising agency. Last 2 weeks we had an urgent and emergency video project, which forced me and 3 of our creative staff to work overtime every day without rest. We went to the office at 9 a.m. every day and didn't leave until around 11 p.m. Last Thursday, as usual, we were staying late working on the almost finished project. There were about 4 of us working together, although my job was just to watch them work, really. Me and 2 junior designers were sitting in a parallel line, while another guy who's a senior was sitting behind us in a separate desk. Facing this guy is the kitchen. Now, we have all heard stories about the ghost girl who lives in our office's kitchen, and she would sometimes make noises at night or move things around, generally frightening whoever was unlucky enough to work overtime, I guess. My team were all newcomers who had just started working for a few months, so none of us had any chance to be introduced to this invisible coworker. Everybody started leaving at 7 p.m., and by 9 p.m., we were the only team left. Because it was late, we turned off most of the lights, including the kitchen light. We were chatting away while working, joking, and laughing. Well, suddenly we heard a soft screech. It sounded like a woman's choked screaming, and it came from the direction of the kitchen. The four of us instantly looked at each other, asking, what the hell did we just hear, and unconsciously sat closer together. Even the senior left his desk and sat with us, discontinuing his work. Nothing happened for a while, and we resumed our light mood again, even joking about the kitchen ghost. Suddenly, one of the iMacs turned on by itself and started playing Sugar from Maroon 5 on YouTube. Like, the screen was dark, and suddenly it just lighted up, showing the video Sugar playing right at the part where Adam Levine sings, "I'm right here, 'cause I need little love and little sympathy." You watch the scene with dumb looks on our faces when suddenly the iMac shut down again right after the refrain finished, right after that line finished. I mean, very suddenly, like someone just pulled the plug out of the electric socket or something. Nothing more happened, but we still decided to call it a night and leave as quickly as we can. But not before my friend yelled, "Thanks for the song," in a jesting way. The next morning, the iMac from last night was turned on, playing the song Sugar from YouTube. Grandma's house. I'm currently living in Malaysia, but I was born and raised in Jakarta, Indonesia. On August 2007, my family went back to our home in Jakarta for the summer holidays. And then suddenly my mom got a news that my grandmother was sick. She's diabetic. My grandparents' house is in Medan, Indonesia. My aunt and uncle took turns to take care of my grandma. So my mom told me to go to Medan to take care of her for a few days. I was like, okay, why not? I've completely forgotten that it was the Hungry Ghost Month. The Chinese believe that the 7th month of the year is when all the ghosts escape from hell for 1 month to go back to families. Now, during this particular month, the Chinese would prepare some paper clothes, hell money, paper cars or houses, fruits, roasted pigs, and much more for the dead. It's to keep them happy and comfortable in the afterlife, or else they'll be bothering you during the Hungry Ghost Month. The day before Mom sent me to the airport, she stopped by a temple to ask for a charm for me to keep me safe from any harms from ghosts. At first I was confused, so she explained that one of my aunts, who has a sixth sense, said my grandma's house has been pretty busy and crowded, especially after 6 p.m. when the sun set. My mom told me to keep the charm close to me. It's a paper with some Chinese scribbles. I'm a Christian, but well, I guess there's no harm in keeping safe. To make this short, I ended up at my grandma's house. My aunts and uncles were thrilled that I would be able to take turns to take care of my grandmother, so they left me there in my grandma's house by myself. It's a pretty old house and big, too. My grandma has a chicken farm on the back of her house and a big yard in the front. But seriously, it is rather creepy, and there was a well right in front of the bathroom, and the bathroom has a few brick holes where you can see the chicken farm on the back of the house. So in that old big house, it was only my grandparents and me. On my first night, I asked my aunt to stand right in front of the bathroom door while I took a bath. But it was after 7 p.m. and it was really dark. That night I slept on the baboon chair, afraid that if I shared one bed with my grandma, I might squash her legs. That night I felt something was poking me from underneath the chair many times, but I kept quiet thinking it was just my imagination. The next day I was going to wash my face, so I used the tap right outside the bathroom. As I washed my face, I saw a tall, dark figure standing right beside the well. I washed my face hastily and quickly ran to the living room. Around noon, my grandma was taking a nap. My grandpa went to town, so I decided to do my homework in the living room. The housekeeper was somewhere in the house. So as I did my homework, from the corner of my eyes, I saw some dark and something gray figures walking towards me from the bathroom. But then it would stop at the empty room beside my grandma's room or the water dispenser. I thought it was the housekeeper, so I ignored it. Then when I was watching TV, I swear I can see a figure of an old woman walking and sat on the sofa next to me. I again thought it was the housekeeper, but when I looked to the sofa next to me, it was empty. And the housekeeper was ironing some clothes in the empty room, so that's when I was sure I wasn't imagining things. I told my mom about it. She believes in all this paranormal stuff. She can feel and sometimes even see them. So then she asked my uncle to pick me up the next day. I was relieved, thinking, just one more night to bear. That night, I slept nicely, thinking it was over. But I was wrong. I was using a slow cooker to cook porridge for my grandmother, and I woke up around 3 a.m. to see if it was done. My grandma had a doctor appointment, and we were supposed to be ready by 5 a.m. because the doctor's house was far away. The kitchen is just right next to the bathroom, with a creepy well. From the kitchen's window, you can see the chicken farm. It was 3 a.m. The house was really dark. I used a spoon to stir the porridge. I can hear a few chickens clucking outside. Suddenly, I hear the voice of a girl singing. It came from the back door, just a few feet from where I was standing, feet glued on the ground. For a second there, my brain and my whole body froze. I didn't know what to do. I was really scared. I finally gathered up whatever courage I had left and made a run to my grandma's room. Stayed there until my grandpa woke up to make a cup of coffee at the kitchen. That afternoon, my uncle finally came to the rescue and took me to his house. I was so exhausted, and with my lack of sleep, I slept in his car and finally dozed off in my cousin's room till morning. That was one weird summer. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that before in my grandma's house. I visit my grandma's house once a year, and when I do, I stay where it is crowded, the living room. My grandpa would ask, "Why don't you stay for a night?" And I'd say, "Nah, maybe next time." Or not.